All right, so we're not going to have you present yet, but all right. Hello, everybody. It's still morning here. It might be afternoon where you're calling in from, but very excited to bring in our series of webinars that we bring to you every month, Creating an Army of Tweetchers. And Greg Turchetta from Collier County Public Schools down in Florida is going to be sharing a ton of information with us. You know, really this blueprint for growing the use of Twitter at your school, identifying and neutralizing the 3 fears with social media, which he's been in this journey for a couple of years now. He really had to dig back to what were the fears, you know, early on, because it's certainly evolved in his school district. And, you know, talking about getting your principals to help lead the effort and letting video take you to the next level. So a lot of information coming at you. I actually met Greg down in person down in Chicago this past summer at the National NSPRA conference, and he gave this presentation, and you know, the room was jam-packed. The people stayed after, I think, for a couple hours to talk to Greg, and I was definitely one of them, listening and learning, and I'm just so excited to be bringing him to you live today. So let me see if I can advance the screen here. A recording of today's presentation will be emailed to you. So you can certainly take notes, and I mean, I'm going to be taking a lot of notes as well, but just know that you're going to get a recording of this. And so anything that you might miss, you're going to be able to access later, and hopefully send it out to some of your colleagues that maybe need some support. And so that will be coming to you later today. You're going to get a lot of information, and our goal, Greg's goal really with this presentation, is to provide support to help Twitter grow within your school staff. The more storytellers that you have at your staff, at your school, the better. And you're going to learn firsthand of how they did it with a school as big as Greg's is down in Florida, and that's really exciting. But we're going to try to provide some of that support. Maybe if you haven't had that before, you're going to get that today, and a lot of helpful, useful tips. As we talk, the lines are muted, but we do have the chat window, and Greg is going to make sure to pay attention to that as he talks, as I am, and so we'll get your questions answered, and then at the end, we will also open it up, and I'll try to unmute the line, so we might be able to have some conversations. Sometimes that gets tough with a lot of people on, but we'll do our best to make sure that we get all of your questions answered. And if you are on Twitter, which I hope you are, if you can tweet out today, hashtag #SocialSchoolForEDU. You can follow me or tag me at Andrea Gribble. You can follow Greg at NewsBoss and tag him. And then his school district on the main account is at Collier Schools. So make sure to check out all those tweets, and if you can let people know you're here, that would be awesome. So I'm going to give a quick introduction. We're going to talk about creating this army of tweetchers and get to the goodness that Greg has. I'll talk a little bit about a spring event that I have happening here in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and for some of the Chicago area schools. And then we'll get into our Q&A. Again, my name's Andrea Gribble. I founded this company about 3 years ago, and I serve schools really across the country with help with social media. I was approached by my small little district of 350 students. They wanted to launch Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, but they didn't know where to start. They didn't have a Greg. They didn't have a communications position. And so I helped them out. I absolutely loved it. I found out other schools needed help. And now I've built a business around serving schools. And so that's really about me. I have written a children's book on technology balance. We've shared over 25,000 social media posts for over 30 different schools, and have helped do training for over 500 school districts. The mission of Social School for EDU is celebrate students and connect the community to all the great things happening at your school district. And sometimes I don't say, it doesn't say it in words here, but when we celebrate students, we are also celebrating incredible educators. And those are some of the best posts that we can share which Greg, I know we'll get into later, but we can't give our teachers enough credit for what they do in the classroom. But with social media, it really helps give us an outlet. I have a lot of free support on my website. I do a weekly blog. I do this monthly free webinar, and I share a lot of things out on social media with my Facebook and my Twitter account. And then I have a business that, you know, I've got 6 kids. I've got 2 daughters and 4 stepsons that I got to take care of. So I do run a business. We do social media management, website management, and those are all for schools, training, coaching, and speaking. Just real briefly, this is some of the schools I serve. I need to add a few schools to that, actually. And then this, I couldn't do all those schools on my own. I have a team that's growing of stay-at-home moms that actually help become account managers and storytellers for the school districts we serve. And so I'm very blessed with a team of now 12 awesome, incredible ladies that help serve these schools. So now let's get on to our main event, which is Greg. And Greg, I'm going to try and I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it really quick. I should have had it before. I'm not going to be able to find your full bio, and I'm really sorry, but I've got some.
Don't worry about it. I can cover it on the way in.
Okay, yeah. You can follow Greg at NewsBoss. You're going to see firsthand, very quickly, even through the power of technology, the passion and the expertise that he brings, not only to his school, but now, you know, helping share with others. He is the I don't know, yeah, your official title is there, Executive Director of Communications and Community Engagement at Collier County Schools. This school district is 45,000 students and 7,500 staff. So if you think you have a hard time, you know, keeping up with your school district, imagine being in charge of a school district that size. I think you've been there for 3 years now, is it, Greg?
Coming up on 3 years.
Yeah, and before that, in his previous life, Greg was an award-winning, he had a 21-year career in TV. And so he's really brought all that expertise with him of telling and covering stories to schools. And what a difference. You no longer have to maybe, report on all the negative things that are out there. You get to just talk about positive things. And you can see that when you follow his school districts. He's also a founding member of Leap Ahead Foundation, which is an incredible organization. I'll let Greg talk about that. And of course, let's not forget he's a father of 3, and today he is nursing a dog back to health and after a surgery. And so if we hear dogs barking in the background, we'll forgive him for that. But I'm going to pass the presenter role over to you now, Greg. Maybe. Oh my gosh. Now all I see is viewer numbers, and I don't see your name, Greg. Oh my gosh. Okay. There, you took it from me. Thank you so much.
There we go. All right. Hello, everybody. Let me see if I can get my picture to work here. There we go. We're going to go on a quick journey here, but it really starts with what the mission is at hand. As Andrea said, I've been in this role going on 3 years. When I came to Collier County, there was social media. The district had Facebook and Twitter pages. Maybe 1 or 2, 4 or 5 schools had it, but there was no plan. And in fact, what I walked into, now again, coming as a journalist into the education world, I came in saying, okay, we did social media and TV, we're going to do it in education. And I was told, well, you don't understand. Back in like 2012 and 2013, the district went around and shut it off in the buildings and said, we're not allowing any of it. So I knew I had a bit of an uphill battle to make it work, but I also saw the benefit of it and wasn't going to just take no. So that's really where this starts is, when, what we talk about with fear is first you got to overcome your own fear. If you're going to do this, in my opinion, you have to do it district-wide, no matter how big your district is, because it's the equity issue. Why should one school be a pilot and then the other schools don't have it? And quite frankly, when you see the overall picture of what the goal is, you'll see all the schools need to go. So what you're looking at now, I'm going to run you through a slideshow real quick. This is the presentation that I take on the road when I'm making a case with our employees. And that's a big piece of this, is the idea that you have to get buy-in from top to bottom. So if you have a superintendent, my superintendent likes communication, is a fan of communication, didn't understand social media, still really is just learning it now. But I made a plan that was solid enough and got her behind me enough that the idea is that she would approve it. And here's why it's critical, because the next level down from there is the school-based leaders. You got to get the principals to say, okay, we'll make time in our busy day to do this. It took the superintendent's blessing and her standing in front of a principal meeting and saying, as principals, you're the CEOs of your building. You have to market your own school. The gravas of the office helps get that done. And then she turned it over to me and said, and here's Greg with the plan. So we'll jump from there. We don't need to talk much about the power of social media. You're all smart people, you get that. But there are people who don't understand that 61% of smartphone users aged 13 to 34 are using Snapchat. So I like to throw some of those things around. And then I actually have a lot of fun with it, like this one. Social media channels explained. When you get to the teacher level, many of them haven't used Twitter. The majority of our teachers hadn't even used Twitter. I'd say less than 10% had. They were familiar with Facebook. But the example to the left is one I like to use. The power of social media has Dunkin' Donuts doing an ad with the Cookie Monster. So if you chew on that one for a minute, literally, you can see that there's power there. And if businesses are seeing the power, why are we struggling as school districts to see it and utilize it? So here's the big three fears Andrea teed up for you. The first one you're going to come across is the fear of technology. I don't know how to use Twitter. I don't understand any of that. Now, my plan was I introduced it to the school leaders, and then I started admin teams. So the principal, the AP, or reading coach, office managers, whoever they wanted on their team, we ran the school pages. That's great, but that's just the first step. So we had currently all 50 of our schools are on Facebook and Twitter, and my mission this year is getting the teachers, we call Tweetchers, to have their own personal professional pages, and then have them also contributing content to the school pages. And I'll talk more about that later. But to do any of that, you have to get past the fear of the technology. I actually launched Twitter before Facebook because nobody understood it. There was less fear of, with Facebook, there was the concern of my personal pictures from my personal account might show up on the school page, and principals wanted nothing to do with that. So what we did was I came back and said, well, let me show you how to use Twitter. This one's real simple, and they kind of went along. However, in the last 2 years, I've made over 250 training visits to schools. In just the rollout of Twitter alone, I drove 1,100 miles. This year, I'm at about 140 personal visits. I don't say that to brag. I say that because it takes the power of the office for them to understand it's important. I have a team of 8 that work on my team. I have a fantastic team. I could send any one of them to do the training. They're all fluent and masters at it. But when I go do it personally, it says, I'm taking time out of I'm a cabinet level position in my district. I'm taking time out of my day to come show you how important this is and to work with you as long as it takes. That investment has paid off 10 times back. Now, yes, everybody's going to sit back and go, wait a minute, I'm a one-person district. How do I do that? You have to give up something to get something. And so we've looked at how we communicate, and we flipped the model. This takes a lot of my time. I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm going to tell you it's absolutely worth it. The second fear is the big one. Fear of violating student privacy. When I explain this to teachers, I say, I want you right up in the kid's face. I want you taking face shots. I don't want pictures or videos of the back of kids' heads. Nobody's ever identified with the back of a kid's head. Nobody cares about it. But you have to have a plan. And part of that plan is making sure you have a media waiver form that includes social media and making sure the teachers are aware of who in their room is allowed to be videotaped or photographed and who's not. I would say if you have media coming through your classrooms, they should already know that, but many of them, that was a work in progress. The other thing we provided was I sent home another letter, I call it the rules of engagement, that says, hey, Mr. Turketta's 3rd grade class is now on Twitter, parents. If you'd like to participate, here's how you create an account, here's how you follow us, and here's the hashtags and how you talk back and forth with us. This way, parents were in the loop and understood, oh, this has value to me. And I'll get to that value in a little bit. The third fear is the fear of making the mistake. And this is a big one for teachers. Teachers have incredibly busy days, and they're already doing too much. Why should they take the risk to do this? And what if they mess up? So again, Matt, yes, I'll definitely get you a copy of our forms. It all comes back to the why. And the why makes the fear go away. Not in a minute, not in 10 minutes, but over time. And here's the why, and you better explain it to your team. Opening the classroom window is the whole reason we're doing this. And what do I mean by that? How many times have you grabbed your kids and said, how was school today? Good. What'd you learn? Nothing. What if we had a tool that would provide the opportunity to prove that wrong? And that's what social media does. It opens the classroom window. We're not going to open the school doors and let anybody in and out who wants to come. But if you open the classroom window, we can showcase what I like to call the exclusive learning opportunities and the innovative teaching techniques happening in our classrooms each and every day. That's also a brand reinforcement if you think about it. People don't like to think of education as brand, but I do. Because if you don't have competition or critics in your district, and most of us do, that's where the value statement comes in. And Kurt's absolutely right. It's a huge relationship builder with parents. Parents are our #1 customers. They want to be engaged. What better tool do you have to engage in than showing them that they made a great choice? So we want to market our schools against competition and criticisms. We have to tell our own stories. When I came to Collier, my superintendent was upset. She said, the media too often tells our story, and they get it wrong. Well, great. We'll tell our own story. We'll cut out the middleman. We still use media, don't get me wrong. But we're telling our own story, and we're framing it accurately, because your critics won't. Your critics will lock on to random facts, and they'll throw them and break them over your head. So the last one is the big one. Parents have choices, and they need positive evidence that makes them feel good each day about the choice to invest and let their child be in your school. And they do have a choice. And if you're not in a choice market yet, you will be soon, and you will see that this becomes the great equalizer. Here's my argument to teachers. Okay, we call them tweetchers. Andrea threw that term around. #tweetchers. Steal it, use it, love it, embrace it. It says it all to me. You could also call them classroom journalists. Our teachers, and this was a very powerful argument, and I went in front of as many staffs as I could, full teaching staffs, for a principal to open up their building and say, here, talk directly to our teachers and make your case, was huge. And there were great conversations, there were great debates, and at the high school level, it got hostile at times. Oh yeah. And if you want to be a tweeter, you better bring the hardware. We'll get to that later. You'd be amazed at what this little 20-cent bracelet means to our teachers, to walk around and we do the prize patrol and we hand it to them and say, you're a great tweeter and we thank you for what you do. Stupid little things that go a mile. All right. So the argument for teachers is you have the content, you have the classroom and expert access. You know exactly when a visual lesson is going to go on. You know when you're doing something above and beyond that you spend a lot of time building. Why not showcase it? Well, now we've provided them the distribution channels to do it. They've got the school and district web pages, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, district app. We gave them all. And then this thing gives them the ability to deliver it. They have the ability to shoot video and provide live coverage. We do live events in our schools all the time. We've turned it loose on Facebook. It's measured. It's controlled. I'm involved with it every time we do it. It's not like we're just handing out the keys and saying, go, go, go. We have a whole Facebook system that's a whole nother webinar. But this third from the bottom point is a big one for your superintendent. You have the ability to control the message. Remember what I said earlier. My boss did not like that other people were telling our story and telling it inaccurately. How many of us have spent time on the phone with a reporter saying, nope, that fact's wrong. Nope, that's not it at all. This eliminates part of that. And earned media is just the cherry on top of our coverage. And lastly, and I said this in our classrooms, you have no choice in a school choice environment. If you're not defending your work, your students are moving. And the example I like to use is students are moving in and out of public schools. Parents are making these decisions with less information than you would use to buy a house, buy a car, or adopt a dog. I mean, really, it's like that.
I got a question for you quick, Greg.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I get kind of on that last slide is, there is so much power, right, with your phone that you can grab. I often get, that's my personal phone. Can I use that to post pictures of students or take video? How have you approached that question with your staff members?
It's been about a 1.5% question. I have received that question.
Okay.
But the person who's asking that question usually is not the one who's going to create their own Twitter account.
Right.
That's what I meant by on student privacy. And this is a big point. When you're in a room and you're explaining this, there will be a couple of teachers who won't go with you. I call it the coalition of the willing. If you get 10 to 20% to jump right then, and another 10 to 20% to come behind that, you're doing great. But you're going to have your naysayers in the room who are going to go, oh, no. I had one person look at me and said, I have a flip phone. I don't have a Facebook page. I don't let pictures of my children be posted anywhere. And I said, I appreciate that, and I'll meet you right where you are, and I'm not going to change your mind, because you're not going to move them around. Yes, we don't have district-issued devices. I do our entire social media on my personal phone, and that's how I explain it to them. I say there is a leap you're making here. It should be addressed, and it should go, but they're already doing it. You know, they're using their phones to do all the other different processes, and we have a BYOD policy where students are bringing devices in too, so it becomes a muddier mess to say, but very rarely did I have to make that argument, and the people I did, they didn't come along anyways.
Okay, cool. And I just saw Kristen, thank you so much, said they even added that personal device information to their social media policy. So Kristen, if you could send me a copy of that, I'd just like to share that to the listeners, and then I'll definitely take a look at it to address that with the schools, you know, if they bring that up. So.
Okay, here's the power of the images. Now, this is phase one. If you have people that are taking still pictures in class, I like to use the levels of learning, level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But the picture to the left to me is exactly, I had a teacher take that, and I sat there and I stared at it for about 45 seconds one day, and I said, that's everything you want in a picture out of a classroom. Old school notebook, new school device, microscope, child who looks thoroughly engaged. You know, I saved that picture and I said that'll be on a brochure or a handbook later on in the year, produced by our teachers. The one in the middle, you can see social media has already started integrating into what they do in their lesson plans. We have teachers who use Twitter, not that they have the kids tweet, although we have some doing that, but they use Twitter in the classroom as just the kids get it. But the one on the right to me this is next level picture taking by a Tweetcher. The Tweetcher is the woman in the red shirt. So she got somebody else to come into the room and knowing she was going to do an engaging lesson and capture this image. If that doesn't say student engagement, I don't know what does. The picture on the left made the 11 o'clock news locally, not because we pushed it to them, but because they saw it and said, that's amazing. We want to know the story behind that. We want to use it as a kicker on a newscast. These are all teacher generated. The middle one, I think, is a conversation starter. Again, remember I talked about with the dinner table conversation. I don't know who Hector Manley is, but I know that Mr. Manley is missing both of his legs just by these pictures. So if I go home tonight and my child was in that class and I can ask him, tell me about Mr. Manley. What'd you learn from him today? 15, 20 minutes of talking. And then on the right, telling a story through the dog. Toby is the dog at our vet clinic at our technical college. You know, and just an engaging post showing our students at our technical college actually get to work on live animals. I've learned all of that from a still image on a Twitter post.
Just quick, Greg, just go back. And so these images, we did a webinar back in January of taking good pictures, but you know, that's really key. And the closer you can get and down to the student's level, I mean, that one on the left, and you didn't say much. It's just fascinated, engaged, and full of questions. Like
right.
That's all. And their faces, it's just incredible. And so, you know, showcasing these kind of pictures when you talk to your staff and ask them to put things out there, they'll start and they won't be so great, but then they'll get better and better. And when you can get pictures like that, those are priceless.
Yeah. I call it the spark collection business. And teachers get that when you say that. And they go, well, what do you mean? When I started walking around our schools, you can see that spark that goes between the student and the teacher in a moment. And there's hundreds of them in a building every day. And so I said to the teachers, capture those sparks. And that resonated because they get it and they could document it. And quite frankly, they can predict when it's going to happen. So even if I'm standing in the room as a journalist, I can start to get an idea, but they are fantastic at this. And so if you give them the tools, you give them the proper training, and that training is a key piece. I do one-on-one trainings. I tell them, get any group of teachers you want together, and I will come before school, after school, on a professional development day. I'm integrated into a lot of professional development days as just something that they do, and the results have been tremendous. I'm going to show you some videos in a minute, but we have jumped past just shooting video, but I want to explain the video piece. The video is the critical piece to this. Still images are fantastic, but getting me into the classroom and seeing things as they happen almost in real time is another level above that. These were some of the advice I gave them about, we have teachers that create Twitter accounts, but they don't create classroom Facebook pages. This wasn't about the interaction with students, and that was a key piece. And I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I just wanted to draw that line. But being consistent and posting regularly. Teachers who post once a week, not enough. One of the things I had heard at a past NSPRA conference was the golden rule is if you can put 5 minutes a day into the effort. Because think about it, for 5 minutes a day, you can make 2 or 3 posts. And if you break that 5 minutes up throughout the day, you really aren't putting any time into it and you're getting great results. Look for those visual lessons and have fun with it. One of the things about doing this training is I have a blast with teachers and principals. If you make it fun, you keep it loose, you show them. I mean, there's nothing I enjoy more than going around getting pictures of great students and teachers doing great things. Okay, level 5 video. Our teachers have taken this effort and they've run with it. They've created iMovies. iMovie became one of the things that everybody just migrated towards. And I had a challenge of keeping up with the teachers because they were evolving so fast where they were creating iMovie trailers, iMovie movies. They were using Magisto. And they're creating feature films in their classroom every day. And I'm going to show you one of those right now because the power of this is just tremendous. Okay, watch this and tell me what you think of this. Can you hear it?
I can't hear it yet. Is there a little music in the background?
Yeah, there's a little music, and then the kids will start talking.
Oh, okay.
It was playing for me before. But this is teacher generated, knowing that.
About the bending of light and how our eyes adjust to the darkness.
Could you hear her?
Yes.
Okay.
People come in my stop it, and no, it needs to stay. It needs to stay. I need to the what?
Doesn't this look like a class you'd want to be in?
Yeah.
This is 3rd grade.
Look at that beautiful ring.
So you get the idea on that. I'm going to take it for another quick little tour. Here's another elementary school teacher.
What are you making? Sorry. I made a jade and mom's name. Very cute. And what are we doing? We're making chemical changes with crystals. See what happens, right? An A. It's a hard
Okay, so the obvious question when you see that is you're going to ask, well, how are these teachers getting the time to do this? Those videos are produced in 5 to 10, probably 15, 20 minutes to start. They're getting them down to 15 minutes now. But that's where they take it. And it's absolutely phenomenal. The teacher who made that bending light, when I went and I did a segment, and I'll show you this in a second, about one of the things that's evolved is I'm doing a video series on my Twitter account showing how do they do that? Because teachers started asking me, hey, I'm seeing this great teacher. They're using these movies. They're doing these. How do they make it work? So when I went to talk to Angela about that video I showed you about the bending of light, she was doing a lesson, but she handed me this page that's in front of you, and it said, fitting Twitter in. And these were her 10 tips, not mine, her. 10 tips of how other teachers can, make social media work in their day. And then I took her back, and I'll show you real quick this. This is my video of talking to her about how she does her day.
I think it's really important for the families that are, part of our class to see all the action and all the learning that's going on.
When it makes like a little volcano up here, and it pulls the candies from the bottom up, and it makes a little volcano, and it rises, makes them rise up, and we're all exciting, they sort of dissolve.
preparing ahead of time as far as thinking about what shots you want to get and where the action is going to be, where the interest is going to be.
So that's just a taste of that, but you get the idea of the teachers will really take this and run with it, and as long as you keep with them and keep pushing them. I mean, that's the big piece of it. Really is about, you have to be the expert in this, and every time you see them, I have people coming up to me going, hey, I want to show you something really cool. And so, like, I'm the purveyor of social media knowledge now, that it's really, to me, it's my obligation to take it from classroom to classroom, to take it from school to school. But I want to show you this right here. At the end of the day, when you get past your social media policy, you get past the idea of, wow, the training is going to be tough and the rollout plan is going to be difficult. I asked one of our schools to throw it on Facebook. What do you think of our social media effort? And if you look at this first quote, this is a parent who's been in this elementary school for 14 years, and she feels more connected than ever this year, thanks to what the school and the teachers are doing. And the second quote here to me, if I had to come up with a slogan as to what this is about, it would be this. The school's posts are a little splash of happiness that show up my newsfeed, reminding me that my child's in a great environment that they're flourishing in. I mean, that really is what it's all about. Here's the awards piece. You have to reward great effort. And I learned this early on in our, 2 years ago I learned this. When schools were handing out attendance trophies to schools that had the highest attendance rates, the light bulb went off. And I said, okay, teachers, everybody loves a great reward. So what you see here is in the bottom left corner, that's a hashtag award. We gave those out to schools that had the greatest growth over a month. The Where It's At award is the top left corner. That's somebody who was doing something innovative. It could go to a teacher, it could go to a school, but it was something that really caught our eye. The Tweetcher bracelet, you can see the teachers actually wear them. And then top dead center, this was one of those things that just came along. As we started doing awards, we said, teachers are doing such a fantastic job. We have to find something to reward that. And what you see top dead center is the golden hashtag. We found those on clearance for like $5 at a Cracker Barrel. And that's an award that teachers take home and they keep. And we handed out one of those a month. And we made a prize patrol deal out of it. We went to their classrooms. So you can see we're standing there with their kids, letting them know, 1, we acknowledge your excellence. 2, we want to make the kids excited about it. And then 3, it also created events that the kids could take home and tell their parents, hey, we're a Twitter class. Because now we have classrooms where the kids are the stars and the kids are making movies. If you look on my Twitter account, you'll see we have a first grade class. Their teacher's incredibly innovative. He's flipped the classroom, and now the kids are making videos to teach back to him and to teach to other schools. They've created academic competitions using Twitter, going from school to school. And we have a biology teacher who's doing a flipped classroom, and he's getting kids excited about biology. And they're creating Twitter videos to prove their knowledge back to him. And yes, he's seeing an impact on test scores. So I think that's my overall big takeaway on all of this is social media is nice, it's neat, it's a great marketing tool, but when you can start seeing it impacting student achievement and teachers are integrating it into lesson plans. And my final story for you is we had a student show up from New York, and he showed up in that for first grade at that school I was just referencing. It's this class right down here. This is Mr. Merrill's class. You can see a video about how they do what they do on my Twitter feed as well. But a student showed up at that school and said, I want to be in Mr. Merrill's class. And the administration kind of looked at him like, how do you know Mr. Merrill? You just moved from New York, right? And the answer was exactly what you thought. We've been following it on Twitter. That place looks like the place to be. So we have parents that come up to me and say, I'm considering moving from this school to that school based on what I've seen on social media. And these are very good. These are possible transfers from very good school to very good school. So when you get this 2 years down the road, it starts evolving into places that you didn't see it going. But I promise you, when you get past the hard work and the fear, the reward on the other side is greater than I could have ever hoped for. And just in the past week, we had accreditation last week. And one of the 4 powerful practices we quoted for our district was our communications. And the lead evaluator said, I'm not sure about this social media thing. I don't know a lot about it. But your parents and community are talking about it a lot, and we think it's a powerful practice. And that cemented the effort with our leadership teams.
That's awesome. I got a quick question on these awards. So the ones that are lighting up, are those are traveling trophies?
Yes, those go back and forth every month. Now, in the last few months, I stopped doing that. So it was good for a year. It was good for a year and a half, but it got to a point where I felt that it should transfer to the principal, because we could hand out awards just on who was growing followers and on that level, but I wanted the principals to own it. So I gave them a ton of these bracelets, and I gave them a bunch of the little red hashtags that are lit up right in that central picture. And I said, I want you to hand these out now. I want the teachers to know that you're watching and that you're noticing and you're awarding them. Because we have some schools that have 95% of their teachers on social media. We have some schools where there's less than a handful. So there are incredible success stories, and then there's some schools that struggle. And I can tell you this, the hard lesson is, if the principal doesn't bless the effort, it's not going anywhere. If they're not behind it and they're not pushing, then the teachers aren't going to come unless they see a personal benefit. The other part of this is, and Kurt's exactly right, Kurt was our science leader, and he was an innovator in this from day one. Our human resource department's even on social media. And I spent a lot of time working with them on the idea that what a great recruitment tool. We hire 300 to 400 teachers a year. So we're constantly recruiting. And so we're going all over the country, and we're having trouble finding candidates at times. But social media is a great way to demonstrate we're a cool district. We have great, amazing buildings. We're the second highest paid teachers in the state. We have great selling points. Why not use social media to go after these people and bring them to beautiful Southwest Florida? So science, technology, math, HR, all these other departments are starting to see the power of this, and they're coming online. So we're in the process right now of adding up how many people do we really have doing it, because that was a number this past couple of weeks. I said, I really want to know that answer. And the sheets are coming in, and it's going, wow, it is bigger than I had hoped at this point, and it's going to keep going.
That's incredible.
All right, guys, what you got?
Do you have one final slide there?
I did. It was just nothing of great consequence. Here's one of the things we learned through the process. These are our district numbers. We're talking on Facebook to 85% women, and on Twitter, I believe the number in preview was something in the 70% range. Knowing who is in your audience also affects the content of where you're going. So we cut back on doing more sports-related stuff and really got into the personal stories and creating, being journalists and telling those stories. One of the other pieces of advice I gave to the teachers was, that's a great question, viewer 8. I will get to that in a second. But don't just show me kids holding certificates. And so give me the action, give me the special stuff. And some of them have just taken off with that. How did we convince older teachers they have time to do this? It's one more task in their view. This is where the why comes in. Go with the Coalition of the Willing for sure. But I've seen this spread, and the Coalition of the Willing is like setting spot fires. In some of our schools, I had in one school, I had a third grade teacher. I went around with the principal, and the principal said to me, she goes, I'm having trouble figuring out what to take pictures of. And I said, great, I'll be there in an hour. Are you free? And she said, sure. And so we walked around her building. I said, take me anywhere. Take me anywhere, and I'll find great content in your building. Well, she dropped in on a class of a third grade teacher I wanted to meet because I knew she was holding it down. And so the third grade teacher told me, she goes, I'm the only one in this grade level doing it. And some of my older coworkers resent me for it, but they're asking questions. They're jealous to a certain extent that this class is getting more credit, but more importantly, you use the parents. If you start to spread the Coalition of the Willing, the parents will come to the teachers that aren't doing it, and they'll say, why aren't you doing it? These other kids are being showcased. Or worse, last year in first grade, my teacher was all over social media. Now in second grade, you don't do it. I don't like it. I have an expectation as a parent. That's what we're starting to see now, is they're asking for teachers. So I tell the principals and I tell the teachers this as well. You're going to start recruiting for this skill set in your employees. You have to. I've had top 20 Tweetchers move from one school to another and completely change the dynamic in that school because they're a leader. They go in, they demonstrate, and all of a sudden they have more people coming on board. I had a principal move from a very successful social media school to one that was a challenge. In less than 2 weeks, she had 10 teachers already going. Just simply by saying, this matters to us, we need to do it. So yeah, let the people who aren't going to go along behind, you'll know who they are. They're the ones that are resisting digital resources and tools. They're the ones not integrating this into their curriculum. You got to say, I'm going to stick to where I can go and let people see the benefit of it.
Yeah, and let some of that competitive, kind of drive it. I don't know why it's X. I'm going to just, before we get to the rest of the questions, I'm just going to reclaim presenter role here and just go through my last few slides here. Greg, you're incredible, and I know we're going to have more questions. So please make sure that you're, chatting those in. We will try to unmute the call. I just want to talk a little bit about a spring event that I've got coming up. First date is actually this Friday. A day to really focus on social media. And right now this is in Minnesota and Wisconsin. Because there's, it takes some effort. It takes some focus to make sure you're getting your social media efforts taken care of at your school. This maybe looks like you, ain't nobody got time for that, but you do. And with a little bit of planning, you can do it. So we've got the social media roundtable coming up. There's 4 dates to pick from this Friday. We're in Wilmot, and it's close to Chicago. So schools from there can come on up. And then 3 other dates to pick from. 9 to 3, it's really going to be focused on your school and what you're struggling with. So maybe if you're struggling with, how do I get more teachers on board? You learned from some best practices from other schools on what they've done. Grab some resources like we're going to share with you today on the media waiver and a personal device policy. And Greg's got an awesome tip sheet that we're going to be emailing out. But just grabbing those. It's just $97, and it's really for anybody involved in social media at your school. So you can check it out at socialschoolforedu.com/spring 2017, and you don't pay when you sign up. Just for those 2 events, this Friday and Monday, those are right around the corner. So those need to be signed up by midnight tonight. So if you want to come, I can't wait to meet you. And there's a lot of people that'll be there, other schools. Just make sure for those 2 events that you get signed up tonight. So that's all I had. But Greg, you're still on. You see some of these questions. How do you handle Twitter handles for staff? Can they make up their own? Do they have to be approved by you? Did I not? Maybe I need to can you take presenter role again, Greg? Yeah. Try again.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Kristen, we started with the Twitter handles. When we did it for the schools, all the schools rolled out under the same @CCPS and then like the 3-letter acronym for the school. Wanted it so that parents in the community could understand that they're all similar, yet how to tell which ones they are. When it comes to the teachers, I left that to them and I told them, I said, don't be cryptic about this. Be Mr. Turketta's 5th grade class or Ramos Giraffes. If they had a nickname for their class, they rolled that in. They did have to be approved by us out of the gate, but because of the volume, I didn't see the point. I was more concerned with this. If you want to see what all 50 schools are doing today, you can do it by doing one thing. Go to the hashtag CCPS success. And I asked all 50 schools, use the same hashtag. Some of the high schools have other hashtags, and that's okay. But I wanted it all in one place so that the collective lift for the district could be found. So I asked them, tag the school, tag the district, and then use the hashtag, those 3 things. If they did those, the teachers started popping up on my radar, and I would retweet them many times faster than the schools could. I'd be embarrassed to tell you how much time I spend working social media every day. This is not an 8 to 4:30 job. It's not a 5-day-a-week job. I'm literally looking at social media 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, I'm not on all 18 hours, but I'm checking in because on Friday night, there's football that's got to be shared. On Saturday, there's academic competitions. On Sundays, many of our teachers are posting some of their videos. I want them to know that I'm watching and that our team is there backing them up. And if I had this conversation in Chicago on a panel where somebody said, you don't understand, I'm just one person. I can't do all this. I can't fit it into my day. And I flipped around and I said, well, you're not going to like my answer, but what do you expect of your teachers? Because there's no limit to the teacher's day. When the work's done, the work's done. If you want to do that, that's what I meant when I said early on. This is a hard project to do, but it's worth it. Matt, the implementation timeline and plan, I don't know if I'd recommend doing it the way I did it. In hindsight, we launched 50 schools in 3 weeks. And I personally went to all 50 schools, and it was like a political campaign. I did it again this year with Facebook. I had intended to do it this time 3 months, but here's what was fascinating. We created 50 Facebook pages for the schools. We did not announce they existed. And we launched both programs at the start of the school year. The parents started finding the Facebook pages and asking back to school questions. So I immediately at that point, I can't manage all 50 accounts with all the questions coming in, nor can my team. It was too much. So at that point, I realized I have got to get these into the hands of the schools so that they can start asking the questions. Now, here's what's fascinating. I warned the schools before we launched. I said, make sure all your back-to-school resources are on your web pages, because that's going to be the question that comes in. And they got beat. Some of the schools didn't have it posted, and they were beat up on Facebook by parents going, where do I find this? So the timeline really depends how many schools you have, but I would launch all the schools at the same time. I laid out a training visit schedule. I offered it to the principals, and I said, who wants to launch? And so I literally laid them into my calendar, and it was for 2 months. That's about all I did was get out and get them rolling. And then once I finished the implementation, I came back around again on training tours. Okay, great. What another pocket of people do we want to put in? I'm training other departments, and so there's a constant training piece of it built in. So the implementation really is have the plan, make sure everybody buys into the plan, make sure the superintendent's pushing the plan, and then just be relentless in training, absolutely relentless in training. And I will certainly share our parent letter that I talked about that goes home. The other thing, one other little thing our teachers innovated, and this just happened about a month ago, is you can see this in my Twitter account. One of their schools created little stickers that they put on the students that said, I was tweeted today, or I was tweet worthy. And so they wore these home, and then the parents, another way for the parents to know, hey, your kid was featured today. That idea just spread like fire through the other schools, because all the other elementary schools wanted a piece of it. And then they took the idea and they modified it to fit their school. That's the stuff that's great. When they start innovating on their own and sharing through each other, you're moving.
I got a question for you, Greg, and you talk a little bit about the handout, but then did you do any in-person trainings with parents on, because most of the time, at least especially up in Wisconsin, Minnesota, not as many parents are necessarily on Twitter, right, but they would be if they knew all the great things that were going on. So how did you educate the parents to get them to set up accounts to follow?
Great question. Besides the letter we sent home, we had the schools integrated into their parent night at the start of school, because we didn't just launch Facebook this year and the teachers tweeting. We launched a whole new portal system and a whole new parent link communication system, a whole school messenger system. So we had a lot of different communication products we needed to get in front of parents. So the schools opened up their computer labs on parent night and brought them in and explained, okay, we need you to update your contact information. We want you to go in and create and learn how to make these accounts if you choose to. The greatest feature for getting parents on board has been students going home talking about it. And when you can have first graders who can figure out how to create an iMovie, they can create Twitter accounts just as fast. And so that's an ongoing effort. I don't think there's any perfect way to do that. We have a thing called a voice group where we go out and we meet with parents every semester in different areas of the county. Our county is the size of Delaware, so it's a big territory we cover. But we had one last night in a predominantly Spanish community, and 2 of the most tuned in parents at this school, they're on every advisory committee. They show up for everything. Either one of them followed the school on Twitter. So I showed it to them, and I said, your school is excellent at this. Look at all these pictures and video. And they were blown away. And they're like, wow, I really would want to look at that. Now, they didn't. So social media really, outside of a crisis, here's the other piece of this. I have the ability through this phone in our system to take over any school's full communication tools to manage them for them in a crisis. This is the other pitch I use for parents. I don't expect you to be on Twitter to know that your school's going to code red, but it's one of the ways you're going to find out fast. So if you want to be plugged in all areas, this is one of the ways to plug in. And so the doomsday scenario is almost as powerful as the happy, fluffy pictures, and making sure that you have all of those tools and you're getting the alerts. And the parents are coming along. It's tough to measure, because I ask the schools that a lot. I said, out of the 500 followers you have, how many do you think are parents? And, you know, a good chunk of them are teachers, a good chunk of them are other schools, but some of the schools are up to 50% parents, and that's a win. You know, if you can get that many in a school that has 800 students, you know, ideally would like to see the number keep growing. But what's interesting is Twitter keeps growing faster than Facebook, because here's why. The teachers are producing more content than the admin teams. So there's more content on Twitter currently than there is Facebook. Facebook should run past Twitter, you would think. And it's been very successful, but not that successful. And that's one of my my other pitches. Viewer 49, can you elaborate about how you're able to take over an account at the drop of a hat? Absolutely. Little product placement here. I use the Blackboard solution, and I went through Blackboard, and I spent months with them developing a way through ParentLink that I could have. First of all 50 of our Facebook pages are on one account. They're all sub-pages of the district page. So that gives me the ability to get to them. But through our Blackboard product, I can monitor all social media through my cell phone. If a comment comes in to any of the schools, it comes into my phone and I get an alert. Yeah, that's annoying at times, but it's what it takes. But through that, I can go in and I can take over any one of the schools. I can email, robocall, text message, and do social media, app alert. I can even post to their school website remotely in the crisis. And that was one of the greatest selling features to our superintendent, because the principal in a crisis needs to worry about the crisis, not the communication. And one of the things I learned was quickly with social media is that Twitter account gets completely forgotten in the middle of a crisis. And so much so that I was calling school offices and I was saying, put me on speakerphone and let me listen, and I'll live tweet what's going on. And that worked well a couple of times, but I can't do that all the time. So that's why I said, no, I need the ability that no matter where we are, if we have a device in our hand, that we can respond to the crisis. Let me tell you, that works really well at 5 a.m. when tornadoes are rolling through.
Or there's snowstorms going through here.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
All right. Any other questions that you guys have? We still got 33 live viewers right now, and I'm a little bit nervous to try to unmute the line. So if that many people, yeah, Greg does rock, seriously.
Thank you, Kristen. Andrea, I have one more point for you, and this is the one that gives me chills. Twice in a grocery store, I've been stopped, and this is where I measure results. The first one was a parent who had said, thank you for creating this whole social media thing, because now I have something to talk about with my child. The second one surprised me. And same store, same aisle, about a month apart. I had a brand new teacher stop me. And I didn't recognize her right away because we have 3,500 teachers. But she stopped and she said, I'm a brand new teacher and I want to thank you for this whole social media thing. And I said, why? And she said, because I go home at night and I put that hashtag in and I go through and I can see the best practices from classrooms across the district, and I'm stealing them and I'm applying them the very next day in my classroom. That's another one of those, that was never in my plan, was this became a professional development tool to take best teaching practices and move them through the schools. I've had principals tell me that they look at social media to see what classrooms are on pace and whether they're following the pacing guides. And I said to other teachers, I said, if you're in a state that has accountability where your teacher performance and student performance is part of your paycheck, what a better way to create and document that you're an effective teacher. And so all of these are great arguments to take back to your teachers and say, demonstrate for your principal that you're absolutely effective and efficient and you're innovative. Can I talk about creating a hashtag that sticks? Yes, we've only used 2. You can be clever with it, but I used it more from a marketing point of view. When I first started this, we had a morale problem because we've gone through a couple of different election cycles, and there's been some heated politics in town, and the staff felt like people were saying things about them that might not have been true, and that's not for me to debate. But we went with hashtag CCPS Proud first, and we built everything around the pride of the school district. And the employees really rallied around that. We created pins, brochures, and then about a year ago, I kind of felt the pride was swelling and it was in a good place. And then I said, well, what are we really about? Once we're prideful, we're about success. Right? I mean, everything is about student success, and that's it at the end of the day. And I don't think I'll ever come off that hashtag, because you can be cute and you can be clever, but at the end of the day, the only reason you're doing this effort is to prove that your schools are successful with student outcomes and student achievement. So I don't like to get too clever with it. We move it around. We have CCPS chat we do town halls. Our superintendent did her first ever tweet chat a couple weeks ago. So we have some other offshoots, CCPS first day. But I'm a big proponent of sticking to the one hashtag and driving it as a branding message.
Yeah, so am I. And if you're worried about, getting it that sticks and that it's used, you can involve your staff and even involve, some of your students, especially, your high school, middle school students, drive a contest or something like that to be able to have something that people buy into. I've got a couple different blogs on some, top 10 that I kind of like, but obviously, success is a big one, and pride and nation, and, there's a lot of different things you can use.
VR.
That's great. You're getting lots of questions now. What about somebody said Viewer 25 that you mentioned you have a Facebook presentation. I'm not sure if you had one.
I don't have the presentation I just showed you is about all I use. I modified it a little bit for this. And I get this question a ton. What do you have in print that you can give me? And my answer you're not going to like. These are just tools to start the conversation. My Twitter and Facebook training for teachers is person to person. And so here's what you run into. There's no PowerPoint for that, because how are they accessing it? Are they using a Droid or are they using an Apple? I figured out real quick. I'm not a Droid user. I had to figure out there's a whole different Google Play Store and how to deal with all of that. Then there's connectivity issues. In Florida, I'm pretty sure across the country, our buildings are concrete fortresses. So having the connectivity to get to the devices was a bigger issue than teaching them how to do it. Usually I would teach them how to do 1 or 2 tweets and they were off on their own. But I would also follow up. One of the biggest things I see is I'll all of a sudden now the teachers stop me and go, "You don't retweet any of my stuff." And I say, "Well, let me see your account." And then all of a sudden find out they're not tagging the district or they're not using the hashtag. And I tell them, "Well, you're screaming into silence. If you have 20 followers and our district has 6,000, you want to be on the 6,000, right?" So it went from them hating me to understanding they were making a mistake. So that's a lot of it. It's one-to-one. It's a grassroots ground campaign is the best way to describe it, because every person's issue is going to be unique, and it's tough to quantify into a document that you can take to 50 different schools and say, do it this way. I have some schools that tweet in 3 languages, and then they stopped because they realized their customer didn't want it. Our Spanish, we have certain schools that are Spanish dominant, and they communicate completely different than our English language schools. But here's one that'll throw you. Our Title I schools dominated on Twitter ahead of our affluent schools. So if somebody tries to tell you it will never work here because these kids don't have devices, their parents don't have devices, they all have phones. I have schools that have 99% poverty rates, and those schools have more Twitter followers than the richest schools in town. So it is the cell phone's the great equalizer. And here's the other piece. When I tell you my Title I schools did better out of the gate, the other piece is this. They have younger teaching staffs. They have higher turnover. They have younger principals. They have a reason to move their school because they may not be a grade A school. They may be a grade C school. So that motivation to do well, all of a sudden they become your stars. And then on year 2, the affluent schools all of a sudden came on because they don't like losing at anything.
Right. Powerful stuff. There's still 30 people tuned in. If you got any last questions, chat them in quick now, but we will.
Let me make one pitch. If you found this interesting, do what you have to do to raise the money or get your superintendent to send you to the NSPR conference, National School Public Relations Association. I'm presenting this in San Antonio in July. It'll be a much longer version of this with a lot more concrete examples, but NSPR was the #1 thing. Like, again, I've been in school PR for 3 years. I'm still learning a ton. And that conference, when I went there and I said, I'm not crazy. What I want to do is possible. And I got a little bit of great input from a couple different people, but going back with the program there and getting more ideas to bring back and infuse into it, it's worth every dollar to learn from the people that have become great friends and great peers and great sounding boards. But also be on K-12 PR chat. Every 2 weeks on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock, we're throwing around great topics, and I've learned a ton there.
Yeah, and you can get great resource. If you're looking for something in particular that you need at your district, you'll be able to reach out. What I really enjoyed too at the NSPR conference this last summer is just there's wherever you're at, whether you are a one-person PR person or whether maybe you're just a teacher that helps with communications a little bit because, you know, you're in a media role or something, there's a track basically geared to meet you where you're at. And some of the best people, obviously, as illustrated by Greg's presentation today, that just want to help. And they're just committed to our students, they're committed to our schools, to really be able to, you know, connect with your communities in a great and meaningful way. And so, yeah, great opportunities there. So thank you so much, Greg. Somebody just asked, we will share these slides. So you'll have a link to just the slides if you wanted to showcase those to some of your other staff members. We'll have a link to the this video recording will be sent to you, as well as, you know, some of the media waiver, you know, some of the other things that we reference. The tip sheet, we'll make sure to send those. And if you're missing something at the end of that, please give us a call or email us back. Follow Greg on Twitter at NewsBoss, because he highlights a lot of great things that are happening in his own district, but in schools all over. And so again, you know, those best practices that you can learn just by following him, you'll learn that too. And please share some of the conference info that was shared too. Yes. So we'll share, you know, my spring event and then the INSPRA conference. I'll have a link to where you can find out more about being in Texas this summer for that event. And so I'll also include that in the email. So any other last things, Greg, from you?
Just follow your passion. And this is the biggest piece of this is you see my call sign is NewsBoss. That dates from my TV news days. I mean, that wasn't something I created here. I've been on Twitter probably 10 years, 11 years. But when they say, you know, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. I love this because I see the immediate impact it has. And let me tell you, I had people in my district that were laughing at first going, that'll never catch on. They'll never do that. And then all of a sudden, like when HR becomes intrigued in doing social media, or all of a sudden you get into pockets of teachers, and it snowballs into something fantastic. It really does. And, you know, it's a lot of planning and a lot of work out of the gate. But the benefits of it are too numerous to even share. I mean, they really are. And, you know, your principals come to you and say, this has changed my school. And these are schools that are already incredibly successful. I mean, that's the stuff that when you lay your head down at night, you go, that had an impact. You know, I'm not a huge newsletter fan because, as you can see, I work in a more immediate, you know, world. So something has to come off your plate to do this. And that's the one thing I want you to take away from is, what are you willing to give up for evolution? Because this is evolution. This is taking a school PR role and turning it on its head and saying, we're going to look at it completely different. We're going to do it in the now, not recap things. So chew on that.
Yeah, awesome. So with that, go forth and tweet, and we'll tune in with all of the resources later today. We'll get those sent out. So thank you guys so much and have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.